something out of Liverpool, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It wasn't Man City's best performance by any stretch of the imagination. Raheem Sterling was great. First half performance from City was a little bit underwhelming, but far too good for Villa.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to pick our way through just about all of the major talking points from that during the course of this one. Mark, what I'd like to do with you, though, is just look at the top of the table right now. I'm not going to spend too much time in the bottom half of the table, otherwise our Spurs supporting producer will be very upset. So instead, what I want to do is talk about the top four, because I want to bring Leicester and Chelsea into this now, Mark, and say they look like the best four teams, don't they, right now?
Well, definitely on form and performances so far this season. Absolutely, yeah, they've been very, very good. And Liverpool have been the stand-up performers, but Leicester, Chelsea are waiting for a slip-up.
Let's get into the big game last night, and I think Liverpool-Spurs was always going to be the one that drew most of the neutrals and, of course, all of the fans to it. It was a peculiar one, this, in that when you've gone behind in seconds but still end up having 21 shots, 13 on target, but only win by 1 goal, John, it's an odd game, but Liverpool felt as if they were always going to win it, didn't they?
Well, they never panicked, did they, Liverpool, at all? They didn't, just because they went behind, they certainly didn't change their game plan one iota, really. They went behind, their whole psyche was, well, we're going to score goals anyway. We plan to score goals, and they didn't change that at all. Good performance from Liverpool, strong performance.
Yeah, Mark, tell us a bit about this one. It was a fascinating one. In a way, that early goal was probably the best thing that could have happened in that game, wasn't it?
In some parts, definitely. I mean, the way that the game started, I mean, it was incredible that Harry Kane would score after such a short period of time, and then you just couldn't understand how Liverpool hadn't scored up to that point. And obviously, there's a pivotal moment early in the second half where Son hits the crossbar. If that goes 2-0, you just don't know what's going to happen. But in the end, Liverpool thoroughly deserved it.
Yeah, we're going to work our way towards that in just a moment here. As we look at some of the stats from this one, obviously we need to talk about Spurs, as that one there in particular tells you that they've got problems here. Let's talk about belief, shall we, right now, because this is the thing. They didn't worry. They didn't seem to have any fear. That was picked up in one of these headlines here. No doubt, no fear, magnificent men showing unshakable belief. People are beginning to say this right now. And in fact, I think Roy Keane was on the record as saying that they just have the look of champions right now, don't they? They seem to show this unshakable belief.
Yeah. A lot of sides, when they go a goal down, they're frantically trying to chase the game. They're frantically trying to get on level pegging. It didn't seem that way. Fabinho, I thought, was absolutely fantastic. I mean, dominated that midfield area. Henderson wasn't great in the first half, but then just grew into things and got better and better. Liverpool just far too strong, very, very powerful.
We had a comment come in, funnily enough, we're talking about that league table and 4 teams looking better than the rest. It was Gan Tianeng writing in here saying, with the quarter of the season gone, it's shaping up to be a 4-horse race, but I predict it'll turn back to a 2-horse race with Liverpool edging out City. Mark, I don't think it's a 4-horse race. I don't, with the greatest respect to Leicester and Chelsea, I don't think people are looking at them as potential title winners, are they?
No, they're not. I mean, they didn't look at Leicester as potential title winners back in 2016, did they? But that was potentially a one-off. But no, I think it definitely is a 2-horse race. I think it is between Liverpool and Manchester City, and the others are just going to hope they can hang on for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, this was that thing that Roy Keane was talking about in punditry, saying they have the look of champions, with Henderson, of course, who came up with that. It's a really good finish, that, with his left foot, as it turned out. Let's have a look at what they've been doing. And we brought this up a little while back, John, and this was about the fact that Liverpool have been winning games by a 1-goal margin. So let's have a look at their results this season. And what you'll find now is that in the 10 games they've played, obviously 9 wins along the way, 5 of those ones now have been won by 1 goal. The performance might have been better than that, but they're winning games when they have to, rather than last season with those draws.
Yeah, and they're comfortable enough just to wait for that 1 goal. Yeah. That all-important goal. And it can come right at the end. It can become bang on half-time. But they're confident enough to just carve open the opposition. It's a side that's just got balance. And I think when you have that balance and all the players are just confident with each other and they're all pulling in the same direction, they all want to be there, which is key. And that's not always the same in all the other clubs around the league.
Let's have a quick comment before we get into talking about Spurs. Imran with a comment here. Fabinho and Trent Alexander-Arnold were excellent throughout the game. Lovren and Hendo grew into the game. Mane once again showed his strength. The composed comeback performance showed club and company are on the right track. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. You know what? Liverpool weren't the most interesting thing about that game at all, really. I think Spurs are where the story is right now for a number of reasons here. Let's take a little look, shall we, at Spurs and where we are with this. This was Robbie Fowler writing before the game. This was his column in the Sunday Mirror. So Sunday, he said, Poch might just be starting to wonder if his time is up at Spurs. So I wonder what prompted Robbie to say that, because we talk about Poch and Spurs a lot on this show. Let's just remind ourselves, you know, in terms of where he is right now, games played, we'll look at his record. Is there a sense that you would share with Robbie Fowler that maybe the way things are going, look at that, his record is up with the good guys, that he might be saying,
no, I do go along with what Robbie's saying. Squads can get stale, and it's not always down to how old the players are. A lot of the time it's how long they've been there and their contributions, but coaches can get a little bit stale there as well, and can get a little bit stale with that squad. It could be the case for Pochettino. I think the way some of his players have reacted to what's happened within the squad has perhaps left him a little bit jaded.
Yeah. Mark, where do you think they are? I mean, he's in very good company there. He's in company with people who've won the Premier League, for instance. He's in company with people who've won major trophies with whichever club they've been at. So do you think Pochettino might be thinking to himself, OK, I need to move up to the next level within this league?
Yeah, I wouldn't have doubted that at all. I think one of the problems he has is that he's overachieved for so long at Spurs, I think, in a lot of ways. And now all of a sudden you've got a case of, 4 or 5 big name players who have dropped off dramatically. And they need a huge rebuilding process if he's going to stay, if they're going to have any chance of competing with the top teams. So yeah, I agree with Robbie Fowler. I think he is slightly looking like a man. I think he has for a little while now, that it may be time for him to move on.
Now, the flip side of that entirely is that quite a lot of fans that I've spoken to, Spurs fans and even loyalists to Pochettino, have said, you know what, I think we've had enough of him now, getting a bit bored with him. Now, the criticism on the day, John, was this, and this is something I think you can explore. We looked at this and thought to ourselves, OK, no Lamela, out injured. They couldn't do a United. They couldn't have runners in there to push Robertson and Alexander-Arnold back. So instead, you had the likes of Dele Alli and Eriksen ineffectually allowing those fullbacks, who we know are key for Liverpool, to do what they wanted. Could they have done anything different?
Personnel, I don't think they really could have, because you've got to be humble enough. You have to be humble enough to set up the way that Manchester United did against Liverpool. And there's too many individuals at Spurs that have so much to prove. Mainly prove doubters wrong, basically. You've got Christian Eriksen over on the far side, John. If you could just bring him back onto the halfway line for me. He has no intentions whatsoever in running back as quick towards his own goal as he does towards the opposition. He's going to be going on a free transfer soon enough. He doesn't want to, other than getting behind the ball, he has no intention of doing any kind of job in this sort of area here and trying to keep back any fullback.
Could they not have put Dyer in the middle and maybe got Sissoko over there to sort of do a job, maybe on Robertson?
Of course you could have. But look, is Dyer going to make such a big difference against Liverpool? This is a guy that is half a player compared to what he was, say, 2 years ago. Dele Alli is half the player he was, not even the player he was 2 years ago. Great numbers, as we highlighted on the show not so long ago, John. But there's no way.
But they got Ndombele, who came on in the second half, Lo Celso, who they're waiting forever for to have a go with.
Certainly, but Ndombele, I know when the team first came out, when it was first announced against Liverpool, the whole social media was lighting up from Spurs fans. They weren't happy that Ndombele was on the sideline. Maybe Davis could have come on for Danny Rose. Maybe he could have come on at half-time, because Danny Rose got a yellow card at half-time. But also, we've got to say, Danny Rose, last couple of minutes in the game, he jinked into the box, blasted wide and high when he was beautifully placed. Could have been very, very different. There was nobody humble enough in that midfield stroke forward line that was going to do a job on Trent Alexander-Arnold.
I watched it for a few minutes and I thought, OK, Eriksen clearly isn't going to do a job on anyone, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt and let's see if he can achieve something. Let's have a look at what we did earlier on today, which was to ask fans whether Poch should be even bothering with him. So this was what we put out for a Facebook poll. He's been a shadow of himself. We said, do you think Pochettino what should you do with the Dane? Well, 65%, Mark Schwarzer, said he shouldn't bother. Leave him out now. Don't even bother with Eriksen. What would you do?
Yeah, I think what you've seen of him so far this season, I think they're probably about right. I think you need to leave him out of the side. I mean, I said right at the beginning of the season he needs to be in that team. But having watched him now, he's had numerous opportunities and he's miles off it. I mean, nowhere near what he was like last season.
Okay, let's get a comment away from Joginder as well. A lot of you talking about this game, a lot of you talking about Spurs right now. It's a fascinating saga that's going on there. The turning point of the match, you said, had to be that Son miss. If Spurs had gone 2-0 up, it would have been tough for Liverpool to get back. Yeah, it's fascinating. But you have to remember that there was a 6-minute spell in the first half towards the end when Liverpool actually had 5 shots on target and could have scored 3 or 4 goals, but for Gazzaniga. You're right. Son goes through, hits the crossbar on, what, 50 minutes or so. 2 would have been interesting. Would you still have fancied Liverpool? 2-0 down at that point?
The way that they reacted after going 1 goal down, if they would have played the same way, they could have gone and they could have won 4-3, 5-4, 6-4. They always felt that they were just in complete control. There was that chance where Harry Kane got the ball from Eriksen on the far post and played it first time across when he could have taken a touch. But that is football. I mean, that is sport. I mean, of course, it's fine lines and ifs or buts that we're talking about. You always felt that Liverpool were in control and would have found a way to win anyway.
Yeah, and the guy who really stood between them in the first half and being level by the break was Paulo Gazzaniga, undoubtedly. Mark, you know, when this guy first came along, I remember watching him as a really wet behind-the-ears kid at Southampton, being blooded far too early and looked like he just wasn't ready for it. Boy, 12 saves, that's a record in the Premier League this season in 1 game. He looks ready for it now. Could he be their number 1?
I think he could, you know, and this is the opportunity for him. I was chatting to one of the Spurs media guys last week, and I was saying, does he understand this is his opportunity? You know, Hugo Lloris has had a torrid time, and Spurs fans are crying out for it. He is now in pole position. He gets a good 2 months under his belt, plays really well, then it's going to be very tough for Hugo Lloris to get back in the side.
Yeah, let's have a quick word on what happened in this game. Lastly, okay, he stuck his hand up, you know, to be a man of the match, but albeit in a losing cause. Trent Alexander-Arnold is the one you have to talk about here. You have to dwell on this, don't you? Because he is a playmaker, but he plays over there. It's incredible to think that Liverpool have a structure that enables a right full-back, wing-back to effectively quarterback the game for them. But he does. He does.
All-round wide player. I mean, he's on the back post defending, and he's on the far post attacking as well, and he's linking play up. He keeps it simple when he has to. I mean,
he created 7 chances, John. You know, Spurs as a team created 8. That tells you how much he's involved, right?
Yeah, it is. His athleticism is what allows him to do that, though, John. He's a natural footballer. Look, he could have played in a variety of positions at a very high level.
Yeah, he did. He started as a striker, didn't he?
Yeah,
played midfield.
It's just in one-on-one situations as well. I mean, he's got rip-roaring pace, but it's not just fast-twitch muscle fibres as well. He's got a great engine. He gets back behind the ball, understands the game really well.
Mark, just give us a line on this guy. I'm fascinated by him. I just sense that he's just growing into a giant of a footballer. OK, misses out in the week through illness, comes back and delivers a performance like that. And Liverpool trust in him, don't they? Everything goes through him.
No, they do. A huge part player for him, and humble kid, and he's going to go a long, long way.
Brilliant stuff. OK, fine. Well, that's Alexander-Arnold. Let's take a break right now because we've got hat-trick heroes to celebrate when we come back after this one. And it was incredible to think that they came along so quickly. We'll get into those Leicester stars and, of course, Pulisic next. All you have to do is go to foxsportsasia.com/standred and tell us in 25 words or less who's your favourite Liverpool player and why. And you might just be the one singing You'll Never Walk Alone with the Cop. Wow, it's a fantastic competition. Talking about Liverpool, we've been discussing their victory against Spurs, and we got some feedback coming in all the time because there's a lot of very positive Liverpool fans out there. Johnny Michael Tan, Liverpool rode both their luck and tactical nous, but Spurs just didn't have enough in their bag to take advantage. A much more matured Liverpool team. That's the point. I mean, John said this a couple of times, Mark Schwarzer. Let's talk a little bit, shall we, about them. They do look mature. They do look battle-hardened. They do look the business, don't they, Liverpool?
Yeah, they do. And I think last season's performance and getting so close, winning the Champions League, has really galvanised this side, and they do look like their full focus and determination is to win the Premier League, and they're in the best position to do so. All
right, let's move on from Liverpool right now and turn our attention to a fascinating, amazing, surprising tweet from our friend Duncan Alexander at Oily Sailor, who, after those hat-tricks went in on the Friday night game and then Pulisic for Chelsea, put this out. He said there have been as many Premier League hat-tricks in the last 24 hours as there were in the whole of the 2006-07 season. John, I looked this up. It's right. In that incredibly dull season, as it must have been, Rooney scored a hat-trick, Drogba scored a hat-trick, Peter Crouch scored a hat-trick. That was it. And we got as many as that in 24 hours.
That was it?
It was.
No Jermaine Defoe, no?
No. Bizarre. Paul Robinson scored a goal. But that was it was a funny old season too. I blame Schwarzer. He must have been keeping strikers out or something like that. All right, let's move on, shall we, right now to where that all started. And that, of course, was the double hat-trick that we saw from Jose Perez and from Jamie Vardy. Leicester Mercury with this one, 9-0. Super City equal all-time record Premier League win. And, of course, the first time we saw a team go away and win 9-0. Mark, tell us about this one. I didn't see it coming. I don't think anyone in the world saw this one coming. What on earth happened at St Mary's?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't think anyone saw it coming. I think it just shows the sorry state that Southampton are in at the moment. And obviously, how good Leicester have been. I think Leicester have been knocking on the door of really punishing a team. Not quite 9-0, but they've got the attacking power to tear teams apart, as they showed. And they were ruthless, but a Southampton side who are very, very, very poor.
What was fascinating about this, John, is if we look at the performances of Jose Perez and Jamie Vardy, before this game there was a stat bubbling under that suggested that Leicester were maybe getting a bit more in terms of results than they deserved, that they were exceeding their expected goals massively.
Right. Yeah.
But they just went and did it again. Look how ruthless these were. Number of shots on target, number of goals scored.
Yeah, well, once again, I mean, you look at that and you think, well, maybe those numbers are a little bit inflated, but it was a wonderful evening for shooting. It was a great bit of footballing weather. Constant drizzle coming down on a good pitch, and the technical players like Jose Perez just connecting with the ball beautifully. Nearly all the goals that went in, if not all of them, were just fantastic rip-roaring strikes that the keeper had no chance.
And that's what I wanted to ask you guys, really, as pro footballers yourselves. You know, I'd like to hope, been involved in teams that have won big. And John, tell me, as an outfield player yourself, does it add up to, you're going to have the confidence as strikers that comes from somewhere to take those shots on. You've got to have the supply line. And Leicester clearly have both. And you've got to have both.
You've got to have a togetherness for the forward players to take those shots on, so it is like a confidence, of course it is. It's togetherness to do that. Strikers knowing, especially the smaller character forwards, knowing that they can take the strike and not worry about not hitting the target so they don't get berated. I'll tell you what, reverse is true. If you're at the tail end of an absolute hammering, it affects you for the rest of your career.
I'm going to talk to Mark about that with the Ralph Hasenhüttl situation in just a moment. Let's get some feedback in on this one, because everyone's got something to say about this one. Victor Sim, Jamie Vardy, aged like fine wine. Really, is he 33? Seems to get better with age, alongside Harry Kane and Aguero. Consistent goal scorers in the Premier League for a while. Yeah. Mark, talk about Jamie Vardy with me. It's funny he mentioned wine there, Victor Sim, because the one thing that Brendan's got Jamie off is the booze he used to take the night before, and of course just before a football match. I'd imagine he's worked on him in terms of some of that professionalism. He scores an incredible number of goals under Brendan Rodgers, which must mean that mentally he's in a good place, right?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. It's mentally, because the manager obviously has him under his arm. They play perfectly for Jamie Vardy. Everything's geared towards him. He's got creative players around him. He makes the runs. He gets the ball. Give Vardy the ball. More often than not, he'll find the back of the net. And the changing in his lifestyle has a huge effect, and it'll prolong his career.
Yeah, that's amazing. That story, I don't want that story to stop anytime soon. What happens when scorelines like this come along? They don't come along often, John, and we need to take a little look at this. Now, if you look at these are the biggest Premier League winning margins. In brackets, in each case, in the season that has been completed, we tell you where the two clubs finished. So not surprisingly, United finished second in that season, Ipswich were relegated. You'd expect teams to be either relegated or close to it, and that has tended to be the case here. Look at Watford at the bottom. Right now, you'd suggest that Watford and Southampton could be relegated. They've been on the receiving end this season. But the crazy thing about this one, John, is that Southampton were actually at home.
Yeah.
Which bucks the trend.
It's nuts, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. Where does Southampton go from here?
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I think Yoshida, who was in tears afterwards, absolutely distraught. The players didn't know where to look. They couldn't look at each other coming off that pitch, and the body language was terrible.
Now, I'll get you to carry on, because I want to show you a headline here. So Ralph Hasenhüttl straight away said, I take responsibility. The buck stops with me. Now, today we've seen this in the Telegraph, given Southampton's backing, the board deciding which players to be ditched before the manager. So they've said, no, we're sticking with you. What do you think should happen? I mean, it's difficult to point the finger at players, but they defended abysmally, didn't they? The sending off didn't help.
It's very difficult for me to say what I think should happen with Ralph Hasenhüttl, because with a coach like him, it hits harder because he is a polarising character. He is very energetic, he's very intense, he's incredibly passionate, and the highs are very high, I can imagine the lows being lower than a snake's belly. I think it would be difficult for him to recover as the type of character that he is. I think
a lot of Southampton's fans thought this might be coming. He lost his assistant over the summer, went to Bayern Munich, of course, and personnel aren't quite what he wants here. What next for Southampton? Let's have a little look, shall we, at the table here, because this is what's happened to them. They've been, Mark, conceding goals, right? I mean, you know, Chelsea put 4 past them, Bournemouth went there. This is the worry at home, especially. If you look at the fixtures, what would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to you after you've just let in 9? You know what it is? The worst thing is actually playing Manchester City twice, because I'm just showing you the second worst thing. That's the league fixture. They actually play them in back-to-back away games, including the League Cup. Mark, pray for Southampton. What next? You just got done 9 at home by Leicester, and you're travelling to the Etihad. What do they do?
All I want to point out is those games that you showed about the highest results, I wasn't in any of those, so thankfully that's the case. Oh gosh, you know what? It's back to the wall. It's hard work on the training field. It's picking each other up. It's more of a mental battle this week. Going to Manchester City off the back of a 9-0 and even losing 4 or 5-0 is probably, you know, it's not the end of the world in one way, and kind of people would expect it. But they've got to dig deep, haven't they? They've got to work and they've got to find somehow a solution. Changing the manager, is that going to change anything now? Possibly. But I think changing the manager before players is an easier thing to do.
Yeah. Okay, that is a worry. Let's get on to Chelsea right now, because they scored plenty of goals. Pulisic with their hat-trick. We'll come on to him in just a moment here. What's amazing about Chelsea right now, John, not just that their form has got them up to second place in the current Premier League form table, but as well as the 4 in a row in this league. They're up to, what, 7, I think, in all competitions. I might be wrong, might even be 8 by now. But the last 4 away games, they've all won now by a margin of 3 or more goals. How does that happen? That's unprecedented.
Well, it's just terrific fun. This man here, Willian, I think has been exceptional in the last 4 or 5 games. Been absolutely sublime. And they are terrific fun.
But they just look like scoring. That's what I'm saying.
They'll score against anybody. They really will. They'll score against anybody. I thought that was a big result against Ajax. You know, for Ajax not to score against them, because they will concede. I do think that they will concede a lot throughout the course of this season. They'll just try and outshoot everybody. I do feel they're going to have a big blip in the season. I think they're going to have some back-to-back losses. I do feel that, because they're a young side, they're a great fun side. I don't think they have a lot of balance.
Yeah, we're going to be mercurial, aren't they? That's what you're saying. Okay, but feedback before we carry on with a little talk about Pulisic here. One Aslan saying, Frank Lampard's doing a great job at Chelsea. The forwards are flying and the back line looks solid. For now, Mr. Wilkinson, for now. I think we'll have to add that right in. What's really fascinating is that only a couple of weeks back, it was as if there was a problem. Yeah, the Pulisic saga, oh, where's this going to go? You're not happy, not getting game time. Well, looked pretty happy the other day as the American opened up his account, not just with 1 goal, but with 3. And the thing about that is that, Mark, he's the new power, but then again, Hudson-Odoi, who was on the sidelines, was the new power last week. Mount was before that. Tammy Abraham before that. Frank's got plenty of options, hasn't he? And young options too.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think early on in the season, he didn't quite have the balance right in terms of young, inexperienced players and the experienced players he still had at the club. Now he's got that. Kovacic, Willian, Azpilicueta, these guys have got a kind of almost the backbone of the side. And these young players, I mean, listen, Pulisic, what he showed was determination, grit, and that's where he scored most of his goals on the weekend. And that's key as well. They've got hunger and desire to prove that they deserve to be in that time. That's what he's created an environment in that club.
Yeah, very quickly, John. Mark made a point. I think this has been completely overlooked so far. Jorginho and Kovacic. Frank's getting something out of them that was more than we saw from Sarri, and that's going to be crucial, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be crucial. Yeah, it is. In that central area, I thought they looked really strong, and that's where Pulisic ended up getting his goals as well. It's in that transition. It's pickpocketing the opposition in that final third. They're a much better side when they don't have to build up Chelsea on the counter-attack. Great fun.
We'll turn our attention to VAR. I know you've been waiting for it, but we'll also talk about Manchester United and the bizarre situation whereby you can afford to miss a couple of penalties but still win an away game fairly comfortably. We'll talk. Was a little bit strange to me. Look at this one. We're going to talk about the VAR calls that were made in the 10th week of Premier League action. Can you start this graphic, guys, by reading the bottom? Can I point out that between match weeks 1 and 9, there were no penalties or red cards given by VAR, i.e., overruling a referee. It was as if the Premier League had decided, or the PGMOL under Mike Riley decided that they were going to back their refs' decisions on the pitch. Now, what did we see this weekend? We saw a Bertrand red card. We saw a penalty award, a crucial one that hurt Everton. We saw a couple of things in that Norwich-Manchester United game. We saw that incredible late decision on the Socrates goal, but before that, a rescinded yellow and a penalty awarded after Wilf Zaha had been adjudged to have dived. So you might agree with some of those, you might disagree with some of those, and we'll get into them in some detail in just a moment. But what's interesting about this, John, is it would seem that as a collective, the Premier League's referees, or those who run that show, Mike Riley, have said, we're going to change the level at which we set the bar, i.e. we are now going to overturn refereeing decisions. We're not just going to present a united front and say, yep, ref's right, always go with the ref's decision. Are you comfortable with that?
No, I'm not. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm decidedly uncomfortable with it, John, because the powers that be, or the VAR powers, they're not in the moment. And we keep talking about how context matters and that moment matters and feeling the flow of the game. I'm worried about the people that are sat in those VAR booths, not having the knowledge, not feeling the flow, not refereeing one single Premier League game. And they're overruling a lot of experienced referees.
I think Mark might disagree with you in a bit. We're going to come back to you in a moment, Mark, because I want to do that properly when we get to the moments in the right games where you might be able to, you know, illustrate an example. Let's just start with the Manchester United one, and let's quickly move away from the VAR thing for a second, just to talk about the fact that they won it despite having this problem with penalties. OK, McTominay opens up the scoring, but then they had their issues with penalties, which were awarded to them by VAR. Strange game, this one, in so many ways, and one that, Mark, if we talk about it as a football match, you then say to yourself, how can it be that if it was a tight game, United would not have won this one, because that has been their penalty record this season. Wherever they go, they can't take a penalty.
Yeah, they've struggled, haven't they? It's been a real problem for them, and whether, you know, people say Pogba and he's not their side, and that's why. I mean, his penalty taking has been inconsistent as well. That is a big mental issue, and they need to try and address it as quickly as possible. I mean, Rashford last season took a massively vital penalty in the Champions League game away at PSG and scored. That's bigger pressure even. So I don't quite know what's gone wrong.
OK. First VAR-related discussion here I'm going to have is this one. A Samuel Luckhurst piece in the Manchester Evening News, and I 100% agree with this one. This was only got on Solskjaer saying afterwards, look, Tim Krul did great. You know, he saved those penalties. I don't think they were the best penalties, Mark. I'm going to come to you on this one. But he was standing off his line. And we now know that VAR's job is to ensure that the goalie has at least a part of his boot on the line. That's something they can't miss, surely.
They did say at the beginning of this, or the Premier League did say that they weren't going to police that as stringent as they did for the FIFA tournaments, i.e. the Women's World Cup. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a believer that the rules are there, they started to implement them, utilise it. So if the goalkeeper does come off his line, everyone knows the rules, police it. Don't just don't choose which rules you abide by.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to this business about subjective and interpretation a little bit later on. Feedback from Victor. Luckily, the penalty misses didn't come back to haunt United as earlier in the season, as they did earlier in the season. 3 games without defeat in all competitions. Solskjaer is slowly doing things right. Yeah, you know what? There were, particularly the first half hour, that was good from United. And if you think about it, if you add to that the result, if maybe not the performance in midweek, and if you look at what they did against Liverpool, look, we don't want to get too carried away, but they're looking for something to work, aren't they, United, right now? Some green shoots. Yeah,
look, Martial, I thought was good. Rashford, you know, we know now he's better for coming in from the left. He's a player of movement. I think Manchester United, they're at their best when they're moving ahead of the man on the ball, of course, and they've got lots of pace going forward. They've got good individuals, and you know, when those individuals are 100% and they're moving well and they're communicating and they have good spirits in the dressing room, they're a decent side, John. But yeah, we can't get carried away.
Okay.
A couple of good results.
And if Harry Maguire does his thing defensively, then yeah, but don't get too carried away. Let's talk about this Arsenal game. This was truly bizarre, this one, in so many ways. And reflected there by that famous rugby tackler, Guendouzi there, with that incredible picture there. Zaha and VAR spike guns. So this was the game where it all happened here. Let's get a couple of tweets away here. This was reacting to the way that VAR was implemented here. And I'd just like you to see this one. This is from Simon Rose saying, VAR is ruining the match-going experience. Socrates scores, the players and crowd celebrate, both teams are ready to kick off. Then there's a VAR check. Nobody in the stadium knows what for, why the goal is ruled out. I thought Chambers was fouled, a possible pen. Show the crowd. Now, Mark, let's start with this, shall we? Because this is taking it in a very different direction. This is the matchday experience. Now, I suppose the Premier League will say, well, there's not a remit to worry about the matchday experience. We just want to get it right in terms of the game management. But I do feel sorry for the fans. It's changing the fan experience hugely, isn't it, this?
It does at times, yeah. You're not wrong. You know, the VAR, it's a standard procedure to check a goal. So people to say, well, we didn't know they were checking. Well, it's standard. Goal goes in, they're going to check it. And I don't really know exactly why they upheld that goal. So it's difficult when decisions are made like that and there's no explanation in the stadium. And also from the viewers, that's the difficult thing to take for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. You've had your say on this one. Joginder's been in touch here. I watched the World Cup semi-finals in Japan, and there were a couple of, this is rugby, of course, a couple of big TMO, television match officials' decisions. They were spot on, didn't disrupt the flow of the game, and there were no disputes. The Premier League should learn how rugby makes VAR so easy. Well, let's keep it to football here, and let's have another tweet here. This was a tweet coming in from Northbank Nadim saying, the Chambers decision today is the most shocking piece of VAR officiating you'll see this season. Martin Atkinson should be held up as an example of precisely why the pitch side monitors need to be used. Painful. This is the bit we need to debate. Earlier on, John, you said in the moment, context, flow of the game. So you'd like to see a referee like Atkinson make a decision in the heat of the moment, then have a chance to look at it again and
on the monitor. Maybe tailor his decision accordingly. I think it's important. I think it's important to see the flow of the game. Also, during games, and even if there's big crowds there, if the referee is, 5 yards away, sometimes he can hear something. Sometimes he can hear some contact. Sometimes he can hear a player say something, which the guys in the VAR booth can't. I just like to see it in the Bundesliga. You see the referees go straight over to the monitor and have another look.
I spoke to Mark about this before the show, and Mark, you were present at Mike Riley's pre-season briefing for broadcasters, right? They don't want the referees leaving the pitch. Is that why the Premier League's resisted the monitors?
They want to reduce the number of times that the referees leave the pitch. They've trialled it for 2 years, and it took 2-3 minutes for the referees to go over. And at the moment, the referees don't realise how long it's taking. So the game gets delayed even more. So you talk about the flow of the game, the real time, it gets delayed even more. That's why they're trying to reduce it. The key is the information. When you talk about the experience of a match, the incident, does the referee hear something? Does that influence his decision? All of that, he is supposed to relay to the match official in the booth. And on the basis of that, the match official's watching the replay in real time initially, then he watches at various speeds and different angles. And therefore, he then uses all that information to decide whether it's a clear and obvious mistake. And I think there's still a lack of communication all around for people understanding exactly how they come to the end decision.
Right, very quickly, guys, because I want to wrap this one up. Before we get to the next thing, John, should they stick with what they're doing? Do they just have to see this through, or do you think they have to rethink it?
They've got to rethink it at the end of the season. That's what they've got to do. But if it's taken too long for the referees to go over to a monitor, have something in their pocket where they've got a screen in their pocket. Why not have a little look? Something gets sent to them so they don't have to run so quickly off to the side of the pitch. It drives me nuts.
You want to see a change, Mark?
I want to see a change at the end of the season.
Are the Premier League likely to change anything anytime soon about what they're doing?
Yeah, I think they'll tweak it as they go.
They'll tweak it as they go. All right, fine. And I've got a feeling we'll talk about it more often than not every week. Jerome's been in touch. Xhaka's behaviour, that's of course Arsenal captain Granit Xhaka, when he got substituted was a disgrace, especially since he's the captain of the club. He should be the one controlling the team. Okay, I'm sure you didn't miss it, but he left the pitch. The crowd were very happy that he was being taken off. He didn't like that. Off came the shirt, expletive uttered towards the crowd, X-rated, and of course the manager has subsequently come out and said that is not acceptable. What do you say?
He's in the moment. He plays in the heart.
Not a great moment.
He plays in the heart of midfield. He's a reactionary character. We've seen a handful of good games from him, not nearly enough. Look, I don't want to say it's a disgrace and it's unacceptable. It's not good. It's not good. At least he shows he cares. There's a lot of Arsenal fans that, you know, wanted more passion from their players. I know it's not controlled aggression. It's not controlled passion. Of course not. And he shouldn't be doing it because he is the captain. But let's not get carried away.
Mark, do you agree with John at all there? I'm fascinated in this one. I've heard a couple of ex-pros saying, yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. He's angry. He shouldn't be all on him.
Yeah, I'm along that lines as well. I'm the same as John. You know, it's not great, and as a captain, you shouldn't be doing it. However, he is showing passion. He's showing his frustration, and it hurts, and that's obvious to him.
Arsenal, meantime, in the Premier League table, they had a chance last week of getting up temporarily into second place. Right now, it's fifth place. It's a long way off Liverpool, but what they're really looking for, obviously, is that top four berth. It just started to wobble a little bit, haven't they, John, here? And are you surprised by that?
No and no. I think it was Mark who said a few weeks ago that you can't just rely on, you know, one or two of your like real class individuals to just pull you through the whole of the Premier League season. It's not La Liga, it's not Serie A, it's the Premier League where, you know, you have to rely on your whole squad, especially that starting 11. So no, not surprised.
Okay, we're going to move from England to Germany when we come